What if Hugh Jackman was never cast as Wolverine? Well, originally he wasn't, as Mel Gibson was first approached to play Logan in the 90s, followed by Russell Crowe once Bryan Singer came aboard to direct, before Mission Impossible 2's Dougray Scott was officially cast, along with Jim Caviezel as Cyclops. Not only that, but the film originally featured Beast, Sentinels, and the Danger Room. And if we're going back even further, James Cameron at one point was set to produce, while his then-wife, Kathryn Bigelow, was going to direct. So let's dive in and find out what happened behind the scenes to end up with the movie we know, and also take a look at what could have been X-Men. After Batman 89's enormous success proved that comic book movies could dominate Hollywood, studios scrambled to find the next big superhero franchise, and X-Men seemed like a perfect choice. At the same time, James Cameron had just founded his own production company, Lightstorm Entertainment, and needed major projects to establish its reputation. Since Carolco Pictures owned the X-Men film rights, and Cameron was already working with them on Terminator 2, it seemed like the perfect match. Cameron, along with Marvel legends Stan Lee and Chris Claremont, began discussing an X-Men adaptation, with Cameron set to produce and his then-wife Kathryn Bigelow directing. Claremont had a strong vision for the film, and wanted to cast Angela Bassett as Storm and Bob Hoskins as Wolverine, pointing to a scene in Lassiter where Bob Hoskins shoves the much taller Tom Selleck while berating him, which to Claremont captured the essence of Wolverine. Writer Gary Goldman, who did third act rewrites on Total Recall, was hired to write the script. Titled Wolverine and the X-Men, it follows Kitty Pryde as she's discovered by Wolverine and recruited into Professor X's X-Men, a team consisting of Cyclops, Jean Grey, Nightcrawler, Wolverine, and Mastermind. Originally formed to prepare for potential mutant threats, the team soon faces a real one in Thomas Prince, a wealthy industrialist and rising political figure who secretly possesses magnetic powers. Seeking to incite anti-mutant hysteria, Prince manipulates Mastermind into framing the X-Men for murder, leading to their arrest and sentencing to death. With the team imprisoned, only Wolverine and Kitty remain free. As the execution nears, Wolverine returns, killing Prince's enforcer Atlanta and exposing Prince as a mutant. In a final confrontation, Prince lashes out, using his powers to attack the crowd. The X-Men break free and fight him, protecting civilians from chaos. Wolverine ultimately stabs Prince in the heart, killing him. In the aftermath, the dramatic turn of events sways public opinion, and the governor grants the X-Men a pardon, leading to a sudden shift in how mutants are perceived. However, during a meeting between Cameron, Bigelow, Lee, and Claremont, Lee casually told Cameron, "So I hear you like Spider-Man." Cameron, a longtime fan of the web crawler, immediately switched gears, fixated on bringing Spider-Man to life instead. Afterwards, the X-Men deal evaporated. Bigelow moved on to directing Strange Days for Lightstorm, which would star Angela Bassett, and Cameron's Spider-Man ultimately never happened due to rights issues with the character, although it would evolve into what would become the first Raimi film. After Carolco went bankrupt, the X-Men film rights reverted back to Marvel. Fox, motivated by the success of the X-Men animated series, and with the help of producer Lauren Schuler Donner, wife and producing partner of Superman director Richard Donner, partnered with her to acquire the rights, and began developing a live-action adaptation. To write it, they'd hire Andrew Kevin Walker, writer of Seven, and this version of the film would have centered on the passage of the Mutant Registration Act, which requires all mutants to register with the government. In response, Magneto and his Brotherhood of Mutants, consisting of Sabretooth, Toad, Blob, and Juggernaut, begin carrying out terrorist attacks in New York City, sabotaging the city's infrastructure. Fearing that his students are unprepared for real combat, Professor X decides to recruit someone with military experience to train them. He finds Logan, an amnesiac mutant with a violent past, in Canada's Department H, and brings him into the X-Men, hoping his skills will strengthen the team. As Logan integrates into the X-Men, joining Cyclops, Jean Grey, Beast, Iceman, and Angel, tensions rise, particularly between him and Cyclops, due to his growing attraction to Jean. Meanwhile, Xavier attempts to help Logan recover his lost memories, only to discover that a powerful, unidentified force has blocked them, preventing them from accessing the truth about his past. Meanwhile, government officials Guy Ritchie and Trask launch their own offensive against mutants, ordering an attack on Xavier's mansion using Sentinel robots. While the X-Men have their hands full battling and destroying the Sentinels, Magneto enacts his plan, as he and the Brotherhood seal off Manhattan by flooding tunnels and closing bridges, declaring it a mutant-exclusive safe zone, where mutants can live free from oppression. The X-Men, realizing they may be the only ones capable of stopping Magneto, rush to Manhattan to stop him. The final battle unfolds with Logan facing off against Sabretooth in the New York Stock Exchange, their feud made deeply personal by Sabretooth's past murder of Logan's wife, an element absent from the final film, while the rest of the X-Men engage the Brotherhood. Despite Magneto's immense power, the X-Men unite, strategically combining their abilities to counter him. The script would have expanded Magneto's backstory by attributing the Chernobyl disaster to to him, while also incorporating iconic elements from the comics, such as the X-Copter in the Danger Room. It also would have dealt with Cyclops' struggle with leadership. However, Fox felt the script was too expensive, and would bring in several writers to rewrite it to try and reduce the budget, with 28 different scripts being submitted to the studio between 1994 and 1998. 1998 also came in the wake of Batman and Robin's failure, prompting X-Men producers to rethink their approach to the superhero genre as they sought to hire an auteur who could bring a distinct vision to the material. With X-Men's themes of prejudice, identity, and social conflict, they believed the film had the potential to transcend the typical comic book adaptation and resonate with a wider audience in the hands of the right director. Producers believed that Bryan Singer, the director of The Usual Suspects, was exactly what an X-Men film needed: a stylish auteur who could handle a complex story with a large ensemble of colorful characters. However, Singer initially turned down the project twice, admitting he had no interest in making a comic book movie. It wasn't until producers approached him a third time that he finally agreed to take a look, if only to have a reason to decline. But upon reading the comics, he was struck by their depth, particularly the themes of discrimination and ostracization, which resonated with him personally as a gay man. Seeing the X-Men as more than just superheroes, Singer became intrigued by the idea of using the film as an allegory for societal struggles, leading him to sign on as director. Determined to ground X-Men in reality, Singer feared that dressing the characters in the colorful spandex of the comics would make audiences associate X-Men with the silliness of Batman and Robin, undermining the serious themes of prejudice and identity at the heart of the story. Instead, he looked to The Matrix, which had become a massive cultural phenomenon. Inspired by its visual style, Singer outfitted the X-Men in black leather suits, a decision that was even acknowledged in the film itself, with Cyclops sarcastically asking, "What would you prefer, yellow spandex?" The Matrix also shaped X-Men's approach to action. Wanting X-Men to have a similar dynamic feel, Singer hired Hong Kong action choreographer Corey Yuen, who also brought in Ke Huy Quan, best known as Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, to assist with the choreography, as he was struggling to find acting work at the time. And while the decision to emulate the Matrix's style helped X-Men feel modern and cutting edge, in retrospect, both the black leather costumes and the Matrix-style fight sequences have aged poorly, making them look dated by today's standards. In the mid-90s, before Bryan Singer was attached to X-Men, Mel Gibson was approached to play Wolverine. While the project stalled at the time, once Bryan Singer took over the director's chair, he had his sights set on another Australian actor, Russell Crowe. Crowe ultimately turned down the role but recommended his friend, a then unknown actor named Hugh Jackman. However, the part was initially given to Dougray Scott, who was gaining recognition as the villain in Mission Impossible 2, and seemed poised for stardom. As Scott began preparing to play Wolverine, Mission Impossible 2 ran over schedule. Despite his willingness to juggle both films, Tom Cruise, the film's star and producer, refused to let him leave. He was a very powerful guy, Scott later recalled. He just didn't think that he could make it work. Everyone else seemed to think it could work, including the heads of Paramount and Fox. With Scott forced to stay on MI2, the role of Wolverine was recast, and Jackman, Singer's second choice, was given the opportunity that would launch his career. Cyclops was almost played by a different actor as well. Jim Caviezel was originally cast, but had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts with Frequency. This opened the door for James Marsden, who would ultimately take on the role. At the time, starring in a superhero film wasn't the coveted opportunity it is today, and several high-profile actors passed on roles in the film, a decision that would likely be unthinkable in today's Marvel-dominated industry. Rachel Lee Cook was offered the role of Rogue, but turned it down, later admitting she regretted the decision. Janet Jackson was offered the role of Storm, but declined due to tour obligations. Meanwhile, Charlize Theron was the first choice for Jean Grey, but she also passed, leaving the door open for Famke Janssen. Beyond actors turning down the film, X-Men also faced budget constraints that heavily influenced casting decisions. When Fox reviewed Singer's draft, they estimated the film would cost $80 million to make, but insisted on capping the budget at $75 million, a non-negotiable figure. To move forward, production had to cut $5 million from the budget before receiving the green light, forcing Singer to remove Beast, Pyro, Nightcrawler, and reduce Iceman to a supporting role, while scrapping scenes in the Danger Room and scenes showing Cyclops and Storm discovering their powers, which would be repurposed in later films. Elements of Beast's character, particularly his medical expertise and role as a political advocate for mutant rights, were transferred to Jean Grey to retain those narrative elements without the cost of another effects-heavy character. Complicating matters further, Fox abruptly moved X-Men's release date up from Christmas 2000 to July 2000 to fill the summer blockbuster gap left by Minority Report, which Steven Spielberg delayed in favor of directing AI artificial intelligence. This unexpected shift put immense pressure on Singer and his team to complete filming ahead of schedule and accelerate post-production, which required extensive work on more than 500 visual effects shots. At one point, Joss Whedon was brought in to punch up the third act, and if possible, reduce costs. While most of his contributions were discarded, 2 of his lines remained in the final film. Cyclops testing Wolverine's identity by asking him to prove he's not Mystique, to which Logan responds, "You're a dick," and Storm's now infamous one-liner before defeating Toad. As Storm summons lightning to strike Toad, she delivers the much maligned quip. Do you know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? The same thing that happens to everything else. Widely criticized for its deadpan delivery, the line was originally intended to be delivered in a casual, offhand manner, with Storm delivering the punchline only after Toad was electrocuted. Whedon later admitted that its flat, dead serious execution by Halle Berry stripped it of any intended humor. Additionally, there were rumors that Toad was originally meant to have running jokes throughout the film, repeatedly asking what happens to a toad in different situations. If left intact, this would have made Storm's line feel like a natural payoff rather than a random out-of-place remark. However, with the setup removed, the joke fell flat, leaving it as one of the most widely mocked moments in the film. Regardless, X-Men proved to be a game changer, laying the foundation for the modern superhero genre and demonstrating that comic book films could balance action, depth, and social commentary in a way that would influence the genre for years to come. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Bullets and Blockbusters for more great content.